So now how do we actually start interacting with our application? So we have our application here. And so to open it, that's super simple. No complicated interactions needed there. That's just driver.get. And then we'll just pass in the URL here, and that will start that. And if you wanted to start now interacting with elements, because we're running on Safari, even though it's iOS, just because it's in a browser, we can still use native browser tools in order to inspect everything. So there's also, in the world of mobile automation, there's also Appium Desktop, which is necessary for native applications. So, right, if you have like an application from the App Store, for example, that's where we need to start getting into Appium Desktop, which is drastically more complicated than web. But for web tests, we're lucky that we can just simply use Chrome debug tools to interact with our application. So to do that, all you do is just right-click and say inspect. And now we can just start looking at the HTML of this application. But before we do that, I want to go back to our test to see what happened to them. So you can see this one timed out. You can see it error, right? So let's go back in here, see what that error is. You can see 90-second timeout for the reason that I previously mentioned. And this one was finished. You can see a check mark here. It's complete. Complete means that doesn't mean pass or fail. It means that we actually received a driver.quit, which you'll see here in the commands. So you can see we started a session and see this delete session. That's the driver.quit call that we get. And so this test was completed while the other one errored out. So we're going to inspect our code. So let's start inspecting some of these elements. So if we wanted to, for example, start typing in a username here, you can click this tool right here. And this is just simple Chrome DevTools, and click here. And you can see that it highlighted this element right here. So in terms of element locators, there are some really good ones and some really not so good ones. For automation of the web, ID is really good, which you can see we provide here. But even better, if we can have collaboration with developers, are data attributes. You can see we also provide that here. So the way data attributes work is the developers can actually, to any field that we want, they can append a data dash something, right? Some people do data test, other people can do like, I don't know, data dash automation or whatever. And then they can put in any value they want in here. And so then the nice thing about this is that this will remain, this can remain for the HTML forever, regardless of what framework we start using, right? If in the future we decide to do something different here, no, it does not need to be unique. It should be unique though, because you want to basically link it to the field or the element that you're trying to interact with. But the HTML doesn't force it to be unique. While the ID does need to be unique from an HTML perspective. But yeah, so the developers have either two options, right? They can put IDs on elements, or they can put data test attributes. And both of those are good options, and we can use either one of them to interact with. I'm just going to use ID because you'll see in Selenium, it provides us an easy way to interact with IDs. So I'm going to grab this value here. What's not good to interact with elements are classes, for example. Like, let's look at this class here. So this class is called the form input, right? So if I take this value and then I do a Control F here, oh, sorry, I'm on a Mac, so it's Command F. Command F on Mac, Control F on Windows, and I search for this class. So I can start typing in here by doing an XPath selectors, or I can do CSS. So let's do CSS, and we can do for a class it's dot, and then type in form input. So you can see that the results, I have two of these. I have two classes with the name form input. So right away you see that it's already not unique, and there's only one little tiny page. So class is not the best, but if we do like ID, for example, and I can get rid of this and do hashtag user-name, and you can see we get one of one because there's only one username ID. And so we can just use that. And we can, we can continue expanding this test, keep it simple. So we can do a driver.findElement, and then by ID. And so that's why I used ID, because there's a method provided by Selenium. And then we can start interacting with it. And then we can type in standard user. That was, if you guys want to know, you can see the accepted usernames and the password for all the users. So standard user. And so then that'll type in that. Let's duplicate this, and then we can select the password field. So I'll come here, select the password field, this one, password. Password. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we don't want to send that one. We want to send secret sauce. And then, of course, you just want to click on the login button. And that has this ID. So let's duplicate that. We'll pass in this ID, and then here we will do that click instead of send keys. Cool. And so that will enter username, password, and click the button. And let's give this test a run and see what happens. So here you can see brand new session started up. Let's pull it up, and we can actually watch the video run. So one of the biggest drawbacks about emulators and simulators are they're just normally slower to start. It's just because basically it's like a little virtual machine running or wherever. Even if you try to do local emulators and simulators, you'll notice that they're pretty slow to start. And so what you can see here is we've already spent a bunch of time and the simulator is still just starting up. So that's something to keep in mind for all test automation, that the startup time for simulators is longer, but it's nice because we actually have parallelization capabilities. And so the way we combat that is by having lots of really small tests, but we can run them in massive parallel, and then test execution time doesn't become such a big factor.